So we've been looking at particularly organizations with highly skilled workforces that are motivated, and see that generally what's important is more collective styles of leadership. Command and control, directive, very hierarchical organizations simply don't harvest the creativity, the motivation, the commitment of people, the engagement of people in their organizations, because they are by definition hierarchical controlling. So collective leadership, the concept is that everyone sees that they have leadership responsibility. Robert, was it you talking about, right down to the Lance Corporal, everyone sees that, or to the private, everyone sees they have leadership responsibility to ensure that we are delivering for the people of our communities, that there's shared leadership in teams. So it may be that Fiona is the hierarchical leader, but when Ronnie has the expertise, then the leadership naturally shifts, or to Chris, or to Jill, doesn't mean that we don't have a hierarchical leader. And where there is interdependent leadership, with leaders prioritizing, working interdependently to prioritize the effectiveness of the organization as a whole, not just their individual areas of responsibility, and where leaders are behaving in a consistent way. So, it may be that, if in one department you have Deborah, who is this warm, positive, kind, caring, compassionate, supportive leader. But in the next department, you've got Irene, who's this demonic, dictatorial, autocratic. They've been talking. Yeah. We need consistent approaches to leader. I talked earlier about authenticity, about openness, about curiosity, about compassion, about appreciativeness. And the question is, I'll talk in a moment about how we achieve all of this in organizations. The last point I want to make is, in a service like the Northern Ireland Civil Service, it's really important that we have system leadership, that people are working together across organizational boundaries. And from all of the work on intergroup contact and intergroup cooperation, and from the work that we understand about human relationships, about the need to belong, there are 5 key elements to system leadership. First of all, if we're going to work effectively across boundaries, even within the Justice Department, so making sure that the whole family is working together, is about having a shared vision. It's a vision that unites us, that says, wow, this is really inspiring, this is what we want to work towards by working together. Second, it's about having frequent contact. We don't build trust and belonging, and we don't overcome those hostilities, those tensions, Tommy, that you talked about in mergers and acquisitions, unless we have frequent contact. 50 odd years of research on intergroup contact shows that, on intergroup tensions, shows that frequent contact makes a difference, makes a really important difference. So the key people need to meet each other face to face, eye to eye, in order to build trust and understanding. Sending memos and agreements, and that's never going to cut it in comparison. And third is the importance of having a sense of long-term stability and continuity. So it's really important for the family to have long-term goals in these mergers, that we're not just looking at the immediate performance over the next 6 months, but we're saying, what do we want to achieve over the next 10 to 15 years? Here are our goals, here are our objectives long term. So we build this sense of stability and continuity in relationships. And the fourth is the importance of surfacing and processing conflicts that inevitably emerge when we try to work across boundaries. Surfacing and processing them as quickly as possible, as transparently as possible, as fairly as possible. I think there's great merit for a system like the Northern Ireland Civil Service to have an established, agreed model of conflict management. It doesn't matter what it is. There's, one that's widely used is the Thomas Kilman model. but having an agreed system of conflict management that we all work with, so that we know how to deal with conflicts when they occur, and to work collaboratively to solve the kind of problems when appropriate. And the final one is a commitment as a norm within the civil service to keep asking the question, okay, you know, education, how can we help you in the Justice Department? What do we need to do that will help you? A norm of, we want to work across boundaries in order to help you, in order that the system works more effectively, that the community, the country is developed appropriately. So that norm of not being defensive to the other organizations we need to work with, but to be asking the question, what can we do to help? How can we help? What can we do that will help make your vision more attainable? So establishing that as a norm, as a way of working, is absolutely critical to effective system working. So, you know, very briefly, we are doing work in the health service to apply these lessons that have come from research and practice and case studies. Because the question is to go back to the points, I guess, forcibly made by you, Colin and Anthony, is about, well, it's about how we make this happen in practice, not just the advocating it. So we've created a culture and leadership program which has 3 phases. We, first of all, well, we're developing tools with the regulator in the English Health Service to help trusts assess their existing culture and leadership with a range of, there's 6 key tools involved. I won't go into the detail on them. They're on the website. You can download them, you can use them. They have applicability in most public sector settings. And the second stage is a design stage that says, it's basically, if we want to achieve these cultures, then we need the leadership in place now, and we need leadership for the future, a pipeline of leaders coming through who will embody the values and the focus that will be necessary to create these kind of cultures. And the third is the implementation phase. So we've worked out the detail of the kind of typical timelines by working with 3 healthcare organizations that have co-designed the tools and the methods with us. There are now something like 150 organizations involved, and increasingly international organizations, in developing leadership strategies for within their organizations to do this work. So there are 3 elements to the leadership strategies: recruitment and talent management. How do we recruit the leaders we need? How do we manage our talent to ensure we have the leaders in place now and in the future? By focusing on the 5 areas of culture. That could be values-based recruitment, values-based performance management, to go back to your point, Anthony, about behaviors. It could be selection for team orientation in relation to the teamwork element. Could be about the design of leader roles, recruiting for compassion, recruiting for commitment to innovation. The second area is tools for leadership development in relation to each of the 5 areas of culture: support and compassion, people management, peer coaching, mentoring, developing compassionate leadership, focusing on creating equality of career progression for people from minority groups, and so on. And all of these will be available on the website by the end of June for organizations to download. They're free, they're open source materials using the evidence base and case studies. And the third area is leadership, development of leadership behaviors for all staff in the organization, team working training, team-based appraisals, leadership development strategy for the organization as a whole, development of people for leading for quality improvement, and so on. So that's available.
Thank you so
Jill. And we've also created a community of practice So that involves people, as about 250 members now, 150 individual organisations, 80 NHS trusts, but also increasingly an international community. And you can stay up to date here, and you can get involved in that community of practice through that email address. And the more people who are involved, the better, because we want to learn from good practice in every organisation to share ideas about how we can create the culture and the leadership that we need to deliver the public services that we want in our areas. I'm going to finish by going back to the issue, for me, the core leadership behaviours that I think are really important in the public service. Public service is about delivering for our communities, for our countries, about making sure that we're working together to create health and well-being and flourishing and equality and justice and wisdom and compassion. And I think the core value which characterises public services is the value of compassion, is it's listening to those we provide services for. It's understanding what it is that they need. It's empathising with them, and it's helping, taking action to help. So I think if we're to create effective cultures within public services, then we need to have compassionate leadership. We need leaders who listen with fascination to those they lead, paying attention to staff, being present with them, being here and now with them. This lovely phrase that Nancy Klein uses, listening with fascination, I think is fundamentally important. Second, it's understanding the challenges that staff face and working with them to achieve that shared understanding, because it'll be both more accurate and more helpful. And it's empathizing with staff. It's having a felt reaction. And fourthly, and the empathy provides the motivation for this, it's then taking action to help. That's what leadership is, after all, about, is about helping those we lead to do the jobs that they want to do and that we want them to do. In the National Health Service in England, the 13 organisations which lead the service have committed to a leadership strategy with compassionate leadership at its core. So the regulators, the inspectors, NHS England, Public Health England, have all committed to a national leadership strategy which has compassionate leadership at its core, and a focus on inclusive, collective leadership and improvement systems. They've pledged to change their behaviours as national systems to model compassionate and inclusive leadership and collective leadership within their own organisations and in the way they work with the system. And I think part of what we would hope to achieve in any public service area is a shared commitment to compassionate, collective and inclusive leadership, to creating these sorts of cultures. So if you take only one thing away from today, I would advocate thinking about how we can create those 4 leadership behaviours within our organisations. So all leaders listening with fascination, understanding, empathising and taking action to help those we lead. So I've gone way over my time. It's an enormous privilege to have this time with you this morning. I've put my wrong email address up there so that you can't contact me. My correct email address is m.a.west@Lancaster, and if there are any questions that you would like to ask, then please email me. The presentation contains many links, so you can go to reports, publications that provide the evidence base for what we've talked about this morning. And if there's anything else that you want, please don't hesitate to email me, and I will send you documents that will provide some of the background to the content of what we've talked about. But just thank you for the privilege of having this conversation with you this morning. It's been just a real pleasure and privilege for me. So thank you very much. Thank you.